we're going to move on to running back here, guys. And this should be a fairly short conversation because we're going to bring Devon Achane back, obviously, Jalen Wright. Do we want Raheem Mostert back? Who do we want to bring in? Josh, I'll start with you on this one.
No, I think Mostert, I think he's got 1 year left. That's a team option, if I'm not mistaken. He needs to go, right? I mean, not saying he can't be a productive back still. I mean, and I'm using, air quotes, a productive back. I think this year we saw age catch up to him, right? And I think this is one of those things where he can go to a team, be the number 3 back. God forbid somebody gets injured. He comes in, kind of keeps the ship afloat kind of thing. But I don't think he's got the wear and tear where he can be a reliable running back, right? And Jeff Wilson, for all intents and purposes, like I know some of y'all are fans. I haven't been. He's a free agent. See you later. Bye. I think we can. I think we can make some upgrades. I think the draft is where, me personally, I think we can. I have a man crush in this draft who I won't spoil it until later, but somebody that I'm a big fan of that's in the Senior Bowl that had a killer year out of nowhere. That kind of reminds me of a poor man's Christian McCaffrey, if you will.
Say his name, man. That's what we're here for.
Scatterbo. Scatterbo. I think he's underrated. I think he can do a little bit of everything, and I think what he brings to the wide receiver, to the running back room, right? I mean, Arizona State running back, 1,711 yards rushing, 21 touchdowns, 45 receptions, over 600 yards receiving. He's a 3-down type back. He can block. I mean, he's kind of that do it everything, and he should be available, in my opinion, in rounds 4, 5, 6, those kind of things. So someone we can certainly, attack it and try to get. If we're looking at the who's available, that's where it gets a little tricky for me, right? Because you have names like Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, AJ Dillon, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams. Like those are all players that a lot of those should probably be re-signed, in my opinion, to their current teams. So I don't really know if there's maybe like an Alexander Madison might be someone we could get for like a third round back. But I imagine that barring any kind of crazy trade or crazy signing, we go into this next year with Achane and Jalen Wright. I'm not thrilled about it because I do think this team requires a big, and I'm going to use his name very loosely, but a Derrick Henry type back, big, physical, can get you those 1 yards, those 2 yard gains on third and short that we lack.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, one thing to note about this draft is that its deepest position is probably running back.
One of them, at least.
If we're looking for a running back in rounds 3, 4, 5, we can get a good one there. Now, I'm going to throw this to you, Taylor. What are your thoughts on running back? Do you have any names in mind?
So I'm of two minds on this one, and this is more of you talked about Mostert having a team option. This is kind of the options here. If Mostert stays, Mostert goes. If Mostert stays, we do have a running back 2-3 kind of option, to whereas running back's not as much of a need, I would say. So then, how high we draft a running back, I would not recommend for signing a free agent. The year for that was last year between Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
For this draft class, Keith, you said it, this is one of the deeper positions in the draft, I would say, alongside the offensive line and the defensive line, and specifically the interior defensive line. And I'm more of the mindset too that you draft running back and wide receiver every year, no matter what. So you keep Mostert. I say you draft somebody late, or maybe pick up an undrafted free agent running back. Mostert goes. I am up for anything at running back. You guys know we talked about it a few weeks ago, talking about the grades. I wasn't as high on Jalen Wright with his opportunities as you three, and I understand that he was a rookie. He will improve. But with this roster, you do need somebody that could be a bell cow back, I believe. And we saw what happened when Sanford got somebody like Christian McCaffrey. The whole offense just unlocked. And I think, now granted, Christian McCaffreys don't grow on trees, but if you can get somebody who can be the guy in that offense, and Achane is more of I want him to get touches, not necessarily a running back kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing would be draft somebody. I'm a big fan of Scadabo as well, Josh. So I would say really somebody like that. I'm a big fan too of the two Ohio State running backs, Henderson and who's the other guy? I forget off the top of my head. But Henderson and the other back who was competing for RB1 with Genty. But I don't think we're going to be able to get Genty.
Oh, so, God, could you imagine Genty on this team, though?
Yeah,
Quinshon Judkins.
We'd have to take him in the first round.
I know.
Yeah.
Don't pee in my Cheerios.
So Quinshon Judkins, Henderson, those kind of guys. So that's what I would do at the position.
I love this.
You know what? We've seen those commercials, man. Those guys are just much better off on the couch.
I mean, with some of our 4th and 5th string wide receivers, though, I'd take Megatron.
I'd take Megatron, not the other guys. So,
All right, so Anthony, I'm going to throw it to you. I know you got a few names on your list, so lay them on us, man.
Yeah, like I said, everybody knows at this point. If you watch, I'm not a college football watcher, so I have to do my research after the season, and I haven't started that yet. So, while I agree with the sentiment of taking a running back in the draft, we seem to do that every year anyway. So I have no doubts. Just don't do it in the first 3 rounds, fellas. We got needs. Needs, and running back ain't a big one, right? So. Yeah. I agree with a little bit with Taylor. Jalen Wright didn't give us everything we wanted to see and more. Not like Devon did in his rookie season, but I think we're okay there. And if we have to bring Mostert back, we have to bring Mostert back. It's okay. It'll be okay. Yeah. Other names I thought I'd like to see, but I have a feeling they're going to re-sign just because they were significant contributors to the teams this year, was Kareem Hunt over in Kansas City. He's a free agent. And then Cam Akers up in Minnesota. He's a free agent this year as well. These guys played good ball this year. Really hard runners, and like the thing I like about them is that they hit the opposing defense hard, but they're also quick. They're not slow. So I know that Josh has been preaching that we need a guy who can take a hit, and I think somebody like these two, if we can't get anybody in the draft, right? Yeah. So if we can't get anybody in the draft that can do that, or if Jalen Wright doesn't step up like we expect him to, I mean, I'd really love to take a look at these guys. I mean, running backs, especially these guys, I had to dig into the list to find them even. They're low on the list of free agent running backs. And those guys don't get signed very quickly, so I think there's an opportunity there.
I actually like those two names. Kareem Hunt especially. That's an intriguing one. I'm going to throw one at you guys, and I know I'm probably going to get some pushback on this one. I like A.J. Dillon out of Green Bay. Now, I know he was injured this year.
Not a bad pick.
He's on my list, yeah.
Yeah, I know he was injured this year, but you want to talk about a big-bodied guy who can get you that yard. A.J. Dillon's your guy. If he comes back and he, passes physicals and all that stuff, I think A.J. Dillon's the kind of guy. He's the kind of running back the Dolphins need. He's kind of the guy I had earmarked for, for good things for the Dolphins offense. He can kind of be the thunder to Devon Achane's lightning.
I don't hate it at all. I will say this though, from a cap standpoint, keeping Mostert would be very expensive, right? Because cutting Mostert would, I think, free up close to $3 or $4 million, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they would cut him and re-sign him like they
always do. If Mostert's back, they're going to cut him and re-sign him, I believe.
So I did put Dillon on my list too. My biggest pause on that is it reminds me of this line from draft day where they're talking about players that the coach is mad because he traded away all the first round picks. So he's talking about trading for these players from the Bills, right? And the coach goes, he looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. And that's A.J. Dillon, boys. Like, he's got the biggest legs we've ever seen, but I don't think he knows how to use them. And I have him on the list because he's a big body. He can hit the hole, but man, I don't know if he's actually good.
I mean, how about somebody like Javonte Williams? Right, assuming the Broncos don't re-sign him, right? I mean, he's on the younger side. Mm-hmm. He's been productive. I mean, he's battled injuries. He battles injuries all the time. So that's a perfect Chris Greer signing, right?
Free agency, you're looking for players that are kind of like that.
Yeah.
And for one, Anthony, I'm very glad you didn't say that nobody came to AJ Dillon's birthday party. But
that's the stupidest line in the movie. Come on.
The running backs, like if you're getting a free agent, you want somebody who is either, on that younger side who's been battling injuries, that you pretty much want people who you could sign cheap. Because as much as you like, we talked about Aaron Jones, or Dolphin fans have talked about Aaron Jones in the past, like getting him. At this point, that's not necessarily feasible considering the rest of the holes we have on this roster.
What about you, Keith? What do you think? What you got? Anybody else, man?
Well, I like Javonte Williams. I just think the Dolphins have so many needs, so many holes on this roster that they can't really afford to break the bank on a running back. So they're either gonna draft somebody. I don't see us bringing Raheem Mostert back. Unfortunately, thank you for your service, Raheem. Loved having you.
Yeah.
Loved having you, but it's time to move on. We got to shop in the bargain bin for running back.
So I did have a bargain bin name. And I like this guy because he took over in the Browns a few years ago and then essentially disappeared off the face of the earth. Dearness Johnson over in Jacksonville is a free agent.
Okay.
And he ran real well filling in Cleveland that 1 year.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure, like the performance he put on that season, he would land a starting gig somewhere. And he hasn't. He's been relegated to a backup behind Travis Etienne over in Jacksonville for a few years now. But, I mean, you can't get more bargain bin than that.
Yeah, it's true. And that's where we're at in the running back room, I think. Jerome
Really
Ford,
like that.
name. Not a
That's
bad
a
name.
really good name. He's not on my list. I must have missed him as a free agent. That's a really good name.
But there are a lot of free agent running backs, and a lot of them are going to get signed, whether it be during the initial run of free agency or after the draft. The Dolphins are going to probably bring somebody in, but they're not going to pay him a lot, and he's going to be one of those guys that we bring in and hope he kind of gives us the production that maybe not Raheem Mostert gave us 2 years ago, but maybe the kind of production that Jeff Wilson gave us a couple of years ago, where he comes in for a few snaps and he already looks like he's warm and he's running hard. And that's the kind of guy like a Jerome Ford that, the Dolphins are going to be looking for.